This is a story about the world's first meme. A viral idea so powerful that it has travelled over 4,000 years of human history and appears everywhere from the 2nd millennium BC in India to the rebellious borders of the Roman Empire in its dying days. An idea whose story begins in prehistoric Iran and ends with the birth of Christianity. The cult of Mithras is a religious cult which appeared in the 2nd century AD on the fringes of the Roman Empire. It was a cult so secretive that they left no religious texts, no Bible, no theology. What they did leave were the remains of dark, cavernous temples, one of which was discovered here in the city of London in 1954. We know very little about the cult of Mithras from the followers themselves, who followed the ancient Iranian tradition of oral transmission. We do know that the cult arrived in Britain in the 2nd century AD, at a time when the old pagan religions were beginning to be replaced by strange new beliefs from the East. The cults of Isis and Serapis from Egypt, a strange new apocalyptic cult from Palestine whose followers were known as Christiani, or atheioi, atheists, because they refused to even recognise the Roman gods. And here, on the fringes of the Roman Empire, the cult of Mithras arrives, not from Rome or from ancient Greece, but at its very origin, from prehistoric Iran. Although members of the cult didn't leave any religious texts, we do know about the cult from the ancient philosopher Porphyry, who, writing in the 2nd century, describes the Mithraeum as an image of the cosmos, meant to reflect the heavens, meant to reflect the cosmic realm, which initiates were believed to have entered into through a 7-stage initiation process. It was believed that to reach the next stage, you had to pass a test of endurance and courage, where initiates were threatened with swords, plunged into deep water, had to fast for days and throw themselves into fire. Perhaps what made the cult of Mithras so appealing is the idea of a journey of the soul into the cosmos, realised in life through the rituals of initiation. This reflected the journey of the soul in the afterlife, where the soul ascends into the heavens. Something radically different from the ancient Greek notion of Hades, an underworld somewhere on the periphery of Earth where the dead souls dwell. Although followers of Mithras left no written text, we can understand more about the cult through the philosopher Porphyry. Porphyry writes of the cult of Mithras. The Persians call the place a cave, where they introduce an initiate to the mysteries, revealing to him the path by which souls descend and go back again. Zoroaster was the first to dedicate a natural cave in honour of Mithras, the creator and father of all. Here Porphyry reveals many things. Firstly, that the cult had a founder in Zoroaster, and that he was somehow a representative of a singular divine father and creator figure. Secondly, that the cult promised a cosmic journey into the cosmos during one's lifetime. And finally, according to Porphyry, that the cult of Mithras was distinctly Iranian, originating in the Persian religion of Zoroaster, a figure who found Zoroastrianism around 1200 BC, a religion that becomes the dominant belief system of the Persian Empire, and according to many, the first monotheistic religion. What fascinates me about this Zoroastrian connection is that if you look in the historical record, Mithras appears centuries before the life of Zoroaster himself. The earliest depictions of Mithra come from about 1500 BC in the Mitanni kingdom in Syria in the far west, and from the Rig Vedas in India in the far east. What this might tell us is that the cult of Mithra may be one of the oldest Indo-Iranian cults that we know of, something that would have spread from Iran into the subcontinent in the east and into Europe in the west. What's more interesting than this is that Mithras survives the reforms of Zoroaster, a figure who comes into Iran and transforms a polytheistic religion into a monotheistic religion. As Zoroaster banishes the old polytheistic gods of Iran for the monotheism of Zoroastrianism, Mithras is somehow preserved. What this could suggest is that for Zoroaster, there was something too fundamental in the meaning of Mithras to be discarded in the name of his monotheistic reforms. Instead, Mithras is transformed from a god of cattle and sacrifice into a minor deity, a guardian of truth and a warrior of light, a figure who upholds the cosmic order. To understand more about the origins of the Mithras cult, I've come here to the British Museum to look at one of the best preserved sculptures of Mithras from ancient Rome. It's here in the British Museum that you see one of the best preserved tauroctonies in the world. You can see Mithras in the act of sacrificial cosmic generation, the idea that all life and the cosmos springs from this one act of sacrificial murder. These sculptures would have been at the centre of every Mithraeum, and it is thought that Mithras is symbolic of the sun, or light defeating the moon, as a sacrificial act necessary for the generation and sustenance of natural cycles of life. The sculptures also reveal central beliefs of the cult, which would have had a powerful attraction over people in the early centuries of the Common Era. The belief that death creates life, and that light can defeat darkness. By 410 AD, the Romans had left Britain and taken with them their cults and religions to be replaced by the god of Christianity. But something that's always fascinated me is how much did the Mithras cult pave the way and act as a precedent for this new messianic cult of Christianity. So many themes reach across and are reflected in each other. The idea of a cosmic creator, the creator of the universe as a god. The idea of a battle between good and evil. But something even more poignant exists in the cult of Mithras. The story of Mithras himself being born on the winter solstice by a virgin mother in a cave. But what is obviously different in Christianity is that in Mithras we see the god himself as the performer of the sacrificial act, whereas in Christianity, God incarnate is the victim of sacrifice. But even here in this discordance, there is a connection in the agony and suffering of both the bull and Jesus. In classical depictions of sacrifice, humans and animals are usually depicted as calm, serene, and complicit in the act of ritual murder. To suffer in agony would symbolize a rejection of a natural reality, that from death comes life. But in Mithras, as with the crucifixion of Jesus, something's wrong. There's an existential agony at the centre of the drama, something which can only be overcome with God. What both religions share is that suffering not only becomes normalised in Mithras, as with Christ, but it becomes the central act for which all Christians to this day worship. Think about how strange it would be to tell someone from outside of Christian history that you're going to invent a religion with its prime focus on an act of suffering and torture. They would think it's too bizarre to even believe you. But in Christianity, as with Mithras, we see the theme of suffering as the act of primal and cosmic creation. So many major themes of Christianity find their root in Iranian religion. The idea of heaven and hell, the idea of moral judgment after death, the idea of resurrection. But one idea more than any would influence early Christianity. It was the Zoroastrian idea of a Saoshyant, a saviour figure. The idea that at one point in the future of human history, a human figure will emerge who will finally defeat the forces of evil and restore the world to the original perfection of creation. For many in the Roman Empire, that figure would become Jesus, a god symbolising good over evil and ultimately offering life after death.